All right, guys, welcome to Get a Grip with Kendall Roosing. I'm here with Victor Hugo. Super excited to have him here. I was going to say in the studio, in the temporary studio here in California. So before we jump in, I am going to give you guys a list of Victor's accomplishments. Victor and I had kind of a similar trajectory as far as when we got our colored belts and our black belts. So I was able to watch his career really closely and was always really inspiring to me. And so he's a 2-time ADCC veteran, an 8-time IBJJF Gi World Champion, including 2 times at the black belt level, 3-time IBJJF No Gi World Champion, 1 time being the open class at the black belt level. He's a Pan Am and European champion, and he was the only person that I know of to double Grand Slam at the IBJJF in 2019 as a brown belt. And then you got your black belt the same year and won No Gi Worlds?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So welcome. So excited to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here, being part of this new project of yours. Exciting, yeah.
Amazing. So as we get started, the first question is I'm going to ask you is, what does it mean to have a grip on your life?
I believe for you to, know where you are, make sure that you have the right people around you and have, goals that are actually there. Like some people, they have goals that they hope one day they can achieve it, but goals that you have planned on how to achieve them. So that's what I would consider, like be established financially and also spiritually and all that, like have the right people around you, have a good goal, like not good goals, but the right goals in your life, like have a goal set. And I believe with years that changes, but mine, they probably changed a little bit, my mentality from when I started jiu-jitsu, when I was like a young man. I still a young man, but when I was like
you're an 18, old guy now.
17. But yeah, like I think something like that, I would say.
I like it. Okay, cool. So when we get started, the second question that we're going to go into is a little bit about your life. So like the 10 to 15 minute version of your life story, because I know a lot of your fans, they get to see the highlights, they get to see where you are now, but they haven't followed you all along the way, or maybe some have, but they don't know exactly what's going on currently. So take us through a little bit of the journey from the beginning all the way until now, and in jiu-jitsu, but also just anything else.
Well, so, I started jiu-jitsu at 14 years old. I always liked sports, but I was never too good at any sport where I could actually make it to a team. I'm from Brazil, Fortaleza, Brazil. Brazil is really famous for its soccer, but you gotta be super good at soccer to,
Did you play soccer?
I tried. I tried swimming. I tried, volleyball. I tried basketball, but I was never good enough. Also, I never really got that desire. Soccer, I think, is probably the thing that I most liked it, but probably because the community, all my friends did it, so I wanted to be part of it. But I didn't have the skill for it, so it was kind of frustrating. I was 14. I think whenever you're 14, 15, you're thinking about college already, because I believe it's 2 years. In 2 years, I have to be in college. I was thinking about what I was going to do, and by a friend of my father, he was training jiu-jitsu, and he invited him to go train jiu-jitsu. But my dad had a really different vision about jiu-jitsu, because he had that old school vision, really raw and all that. So he thought maybe it wasn't a good thing for me or him. But we ended up trying, and at first I didn't really like it. I believe the contact and all that.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I started with my dad, and I was going there and train with him, we were having fun. That kind of made me go more. And I think my mom and him saw how good it was for me, and they kept pushing me. Like they will literally say, "Hey, you have to go train. It's good for you." And I believe 3 months in, I just like got that jiu-jitsu bug, and then I kept going. I believe the community aspect, like everyone usually tends to be very welcoming, and you might not be fast, you might not be strong, but still you find a way to work the technique. And I believe that's what got me in. I didn't know what my goals were. I took 10 months to do my first competition.
And you were how old? 14?
14.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 15 already whenever I did my first competition. Never had competed anything, like any tournament of anything. So it was a really good experience. It was I was very anxious to it, because like I never competed, and I was never at a tournament. So I did kind of well. I won one match, and my second match, my finals match, it was something funny that I still remember to this day, because people made fun of me like for a long time for that. have said it before in an interview. I don't know if English, but probably Portuguese. I won my first match very well, but the second one I fought this huge dude. I was fighting ultra heavy, and I pulled him guard. He goes double unders, and he puts me, my legs over my head.
Oh my
And I
god.
literally heard a voice that it sounded just like my coach. But to this day, he didn't say anything. Someone saying, if you're not feeling well, just ask for a pause.
Oh,
I don't know if it was
no.
God. I don't know if it was
No
my
way.
mind playing tricks on me, but I said that. I looked at the referee. And I was like, and then the
Oh.
referee stopped the match, and I was like, okay, I'm good to go. And then he was like, no, buddy, you tapped. And I was like, what? So,
Oh
it
my
became a big
gosh.
joke.
And your coach said that he never said it.
No, yeah. And it also it makes no sense for him to say it because he knew the rules. But then why I heard the voice, maybe there was someone else, like other match, but I thought it was me. So I literally did that. So for a long time, like I wouldn't mind as much. I thought it was funny, but it was a mistake. But people would make fun of me a lot. Like, oh man, don't ask. You can compete this weekend? Don't ask for a pause.
Man, it's funny if you guys can't see the video. If you're just listening, he held up like the timeout sign. So he told the ref like for a timeout in the middle of the match.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so bad. Okay, so that was your first one. Mm-hmm. So you took second.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then I started liking it. Like the divisions were never too big, but there was a lot of tournaments. I started getting involved with it, but I believe that I like my coach. He taught me very well. Like nothing against it, but I believe not even him, but like the guys around me, like on the team, they thought I was just like that kid that was there for a good time. Like I remember one day during the warm up, we were doing shuffling side to side, and I fell. I literally fell on the floor. I lost balance and I fell. And then someone said, "Dude, you're having fun and all that, but are you sure you're here for this? Are you sure you're good enough to do this? Like." And then I remember there was one guy. No, man, he's good. You just gotta keep training. One day he'll be a big champion. I remember the guy said that from that day.
Wow.
Like it was yesterday.
Wow. And
on my mind, it was just like something that happens. Like for sure, no one's remember besides me. It was just something like very casual. But I think those like small like occasions that happens in your life, sometimes you stick to it, and I remember that to this day. I also didn't have big hopes. I was just there to have fun, but this guy, maybe he saw something in me, maybe he was just nice, but he said, no, man, he will be like, a big dude and a champion one day.
Wow.
And as I said, I never really had big hopes to become like a professional or not, and enough that, but I really liked to be on the school. So during my summer breaks, I would go 3 times a day or something like that. So I spent all day there because it was just fun. I was learning stuff, and the more I trained, I felt like the more I could not like beat someone, but just hold someone, just not get beat up by someone big and strong.
Yeah.
So I think that was like what kept me there. And throughout school, I think like 2 years in, I started competing as a juvenile. So that's a little bit more, competitive. That's when people start noticing you and all that. So things start happening. But I still had to make a decision on my family, and I have a rich family and of that. My dad has a job. My mom had a job, but they needed help, right? Like, so they're like, hey, I think like, what are you going to do for college? You're winning state. You're winning state titles and all that, but what's the plan? Like, are you going to go to college? Or are you going to find a job? And I was like, man, I don't want to go. I don't want to get a job right now. I'm having a lot of fun competing and all that. So maybe I'm going to study and do jiu-jitsu. So after high school, I started going to college, and I was still training. I was still finding ways to compete, because by college I already had to compete as a blue belt and at Brazilian Nationals, which is the biggest tournament in Brazil. Yeah. And I won.
Wow.
So that was like, I would say like a little chance, a small chance that something could happen, but it's still like, you win a big tournament at blue belt, sometimes you're just gonna have that, and you go on with your life, right? It was a good experience, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna become a pro.
It doesn't guarantee anything. And at that time too, I think it's important to mention, like, blue belts weren't making money in jiu-jitsu. It's not like the kind of, even now it's hard, but especially then, like blue and purple belts, it's, especially if you were only competing in Brazil, it's not like you can look at your parents and be like, oh, see, I'm making a career. Like, it's still really risky.
Yeah, and we had a lot of examples from my school. I wasn't from a big school, so a lot of people from my city. I'm from a big city. There's a big jiu-jitsu community there, but we didn't have any like champions coming out of that
Yeah.
city like Bochecha. They're all from like southern Brazil. So a lot of people that used to train with me, they started like leaving the city and going south like to São Paulo, Rio, to actually trying to live from it. But a lot of them didn't have like success. So my parents kind of be worried, like, see, like they tried and didn't work. I don't think like I was thinking about it, like maybe I gotta go south and try it out. And I'm glad I didn't. I just stick to my same school always. Um, you know, went to college. It was really hard to like do both because in Brazil we have a habit of training late. So I think like in America, I'm pretty sure they have later classes, but I think like the usual time for you to train at night time is probably like 6 or 7. In Brazil, my training would start like at 9 p.m.
Oh wow, yeah. So most schools are like they're wrapping up their training around 9. So you guys were starting at 9.
Yeah, like you would say 8:30, but you guys know Brazilian time. We would be kicking.
Yeah,
talking,
I have Brazilian time too, so it's okay.
Exactly. So like 9 p.m. we start training. We get done 10:30, home, sleep midnight, and college 6 a.m. So
and you did that through like blue and purple.
Yeah, end of blue, like beginning of purple belt, and like through my career as blue, I still competing a lot. I'm competing in the state, I'm competing like outside of the state, but not really far, just like states right next to mine, because there were like a couple tournaments that were like offering money. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was just fun to maybe travel there, and if you win, you could like pay for your trip and still like make some money. So I started to like some people started knowing me, and then I had the opportunity to meet this guy that was on my bracket, and he has his job. He has a really high up job on like the Marines or something like that. Like, so he just wanted to help me, and then I was like, oh, okay. I guess he heard about me, and then he went to a tournament. We talked, and like he thought that I was just like a regular dude. I was like nice to him, so he wanted to be part of it. Like, how can I help you? Like, do you have a visa or anything like that? So I'm like, no, but one day I want to go, but I don't have the funds for it, So he started helping me little by little. So after getting my purple belt, that's when I first applied for my America visa. So whenever I applied for America visa, I got it at first. So it's so many challenges because a lot of people in Brazil, they have really good people there, but they can't get a visa. And a lot of times, like, not even because they come from like a poor background, and none of that is very random. I have heard like people that they have jobs and all that, but still they get denied. So it was really stressful to maybe think that I would be like have that denied and not ever be able to compete. But I got it first, and then I had got my purple belt. I competed Brazilian nationals as purple belt. I had like 5 months as purple belt. I got like in December, and I won Brazilian nationals. So then I got really like excited. And, oh man, I hope I can go to Worlds. I hope this guy can help me. So we found another person too that they both split my flight ticket, and then I was able to compete here. And then 6 months in as purple belt, I came to America for the first time, competed in my first tournament, and I won double gold at Worlds.
Oof.
And that was my very first Worlds, just 6 months as purple belt. It was really crazy.
Wow.
And I think I was kind of like it was kind of also like a surprise factor there, because even though I won Brazilian nationals, I came from a city that is not really big in jiu-jitsu. So it is big in jiu-jitsu, but not on the competition scenario. There's not like big names.
People weren't like watching you and knowing you. Well, like the people that were in the States or from different parts of Brazil, they weren't like keeping track of you. Right?
There are other guys that like had a little bit more hype. So I won Brazilian nationals fine, but then I came to Worlds and I won both. And that
big
was like
surprise.
a big surprise. So it was really, really nice to me. But it's still like, I feel like whenever I started, a lot of people, like kids, they always had the dream to become a world champion black belt. But I never really saw that as my main goal, because I know I could accomplish that at some point. And throughout the years, I won as purple, I won Brazilian nationals as blue. I'm like, if I'm winning this as this belt, if I keep putting in the work, there is a big chance that I can win that one day. So I don't want to make my goal only that, because what happens whenever I achieve that? What's next? Am I not gonna have like? Am I gonna keep just looking for that over and over? And if it doesn't fill the gap, what's next? So like winning big tournaments gave me opportunities to travel to different countries. Like get to know new cultures,
Mm-hmm.
new people. And I think it kind of like fired on me like lit up on me like a passion for teaching and like sharing
Mm.
jiu-jitsu. I could barely speak English whenever I moved here, but I could communicate through jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
and it was so awesome, you know. And I never wanted to keep my knowledge to myself. I would always be open to, you know, learn from someone and
Mm-hmm.
also sharing what I know. And I think that's how I became friends with a lot of people. And it's just been an amazing journey, you know, like from there to now, it passed by so fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
time flies. So you won the world at purple, and then when did you officially move to the States? Is that when you moved, or did you go back and then come back again?
I went back because I
Okay.
was still in college.
Oh, okay.
So the plan was like go to States for 2 weeks, get the worlds, back to real life. And then once I got back, I had like a big card on my pocket, right? I was like,
Yeah,
maybe I can like give it a chance because now I won't roll. So maybe I can like talk to my parents
yeah,
to stop college for a little bit and try to look for opportunity because there were a little bit of, like there are a couple opportunities that came up. I was able to meet Shanji and Saulo on
mm-hmm,
this trip. I met another guys too.
mm-hmm.
There some people reaching out. So I was like, maybe there's a like chance that I can come
For
to
sure.
America.
Yeah, because you come over and you're not really attached to like a big name in the United States yet, and you win this big tournament. So of course people are looking like, oh, I wonder if this guy wants to come to the States. Like, I will help him.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think they see the potential and all that. And I think that's really cool, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
uh
because usually someone helped them do the same thing, especially a lot of the Brazilian guys that are reaching out to you too. Like, they had this same, like a very similar dream, and they were helped to accomplish it. And so, of course, they want to like return that as well.
yeah. That's yeah. And it's just crazy because there's different I would say shades of it too, because you think
For
that
sure.
the opportunity for you to come here, that's it. You
Hmm.
made it. But once you move here, everything
It
just gets
starts.
started. And you're
Yeah.
literally a baby because you can't a lot of times I couldn't, I can't speak English. You gotta learn everything from the ground up. The culture, you
Hmm.
know, be a professional, you know, like how to interact with people, how to teach jiu-jitsu if you do want to be a teacher,
Yeah.
and keep training, you know, like you got to do all those things and still maintain like the drive and that will for like wanting to win and wanting to be great, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that can stop you or it can give you excuse for you to take a different route, right?
Right. Right.
And also being far from the family and all that,
It's hard.
that plays
Yeah.
a big role. I said it recently on an interview. I never lived far from my parents. I lived with my parents till I moved to the US.
Mm.
So because I was 17, 18. So it was like leaving from my parents back on my city to move into the
New
States
country.
with no family here.
Yeah.
So
And not speaking the language and not having like a solid ground to like know what your plans were going to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's
was just
huge.
going with the flow, right?
Yeah.
So the opportunities that would arise, I would come in and I'll try to give my best. I was able to meet Shanji, meet Saulo, all these guys, meet Gustavo, meet Chris, meet Steve, and like they all like helped me some way. More people, I could probably be forgetting a lot of people,
Yeah.
but I think the fact that I was surrounded by so many like older men that
Yeah.
like they had their business, they had their experience. It was good for me to like
Mm.
get a little bit of experience from them, getting
They
like
can
the
help
insight.
guide. Yeah.
And I believe like everyone was really nice to me to like giving me like opportunity. Like
Mm.
all I did was just be myself, and the opportunities would arise, and I would try and take them.
Yeah. So, okay. So then we get to brown belt, you double grand slam, get your black belt, you win Nogi Worlds. And then from there, I mean, right as you're, and I remember this so well because we were black belt with Nogi Worlds the same year, and then COVID happened. So
Yeah.
you're starting to get into your momentum of your black belt. COVID happens, and you were actually one of the way more active competitors during COVID, because I know you were doing like a bunch of different events that were big cash prizes and like really great brackets, and you were winning everything. So I mean, talk a little bit about like when you think about getting a grip on your life, like you were just starting to get your feet on the ground in the States and build your career. Then the world turned upside down. So what did you do during that period of time to like be like, okay, I'm going to keep my goals in mind, or this is what I'm still working on, or did they change at all? Or like, when did you start? Because I meant to say earlier too, that you're also a school owner now. So
Mm-hmm,
you just
mm-hmm.
recently opened a school, Six Place Lake Travis out there in the Austin area. So during this time, I mean, what were you thinking as far as your career goes when you had just really started getting going as a black belt?
Yeah, so I think that 2020 was probably the year. Now, for sure, I also feel like that, but was one of the years that I felt like my best shape, like
Mm,
mentally, physically, And also, you know, like whenever I have that fire, I really want to perform because it was going to be my first year as a black belt.
Yeah.
I had just competed at No-Gi Worlds. I wasn't planning on like competing. I had competed at a couple of smaller tournaments, but that was gonna be my year, like
Yeah.
competing Europeans, Pans, and Worlds. So I was ready to make a statement. And then COVID happened. And I was like, oh wow, I have so much gasoline on the tank. What am I
Yeah.
gonna do with it? You know, I don't want to just waste it or
Yeah.
get out of shape or any of that. So I decided to just keep pushing. I knew that at some point the competitions would come back, and I just tried to compete everything that I could, you know, because I was actually getting ready to compete. I don't remember. I had just won Worlds
Mm-hmm.
with probably 5 months or 4 months as a black belt.
Wow.
So that, I mean, everyone says, right? Oh, once you're a brown belt and you get a black belt, be ready to like get your ass kicked a little
Yeah,
bit. Like
yeah.
it's gonna
Because
be
these
probably
guys have been
two
black belts
years.
for 10 years. Yeah, exactly.
They don't say that that's gonna happen. But be prepared. Don't like get your mind like
Mm-hmm.
don't let yourself down if that happens. But then 4 months in, I'm able
Yeah.
to like submit a big name,
Yep.
win open class at a huge tournament. I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my god, the time is now.
Yeah.
So I just gotta keep like ramping up training, and you know that gave me a lot of like
Momentum.
confidence,
Yeah,
momentum. Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm ready. This is gonna be my year, and also a lot of hype. So then, whenever that happened, I was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do now?" Because I was literally ready to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, prepared, stay ready for the tournaments. I had a really good win at David in who is number one too, I believe, in 2020. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
2020, like
Mm-hmm.
probably February. So the year was just getting better and better.
Yeah.
Off that win, I would fight Pans, and I was like so excited because it was gonna be my first Pans as black belt, and then
Yeah.
COVID happened.
Yeah. The
And
Who's
then
Number One? That was the Marigali match?
yeah, that was a
Okay.
Maragali match.
And then it was right before everything closed down. Okay.
It was a big win, you know, like even more like hype. Everyone
Yeah,
like
yeah, I
excited to see
remember.
me competing, and I was excited to perform on the Grand Slam competitions for IBJJF. And COVID happened, so of course I took a little break during COVID to try to figure out things. Eventually, I had to leave California
Mm-hmm.
because you know my friends were moving, the training wasn't happening, so I
Yeah.
needed somewhere to keep training. So that's when I decided to go to Oklahoma, because I went there I think for training, and then I noticed that everything was open. I was like, "Oh, this looks nice."
And just
Like
stay.
just training.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
gonna
you're there
just
with
stay. I'm just
Lovato.
gonna find a
Yeah.
place and
Yeah.
stay. And Lovato was coming back to compete Jiu Jitsu again. He
Mm-hmm.
had stopped the MMA career for because of the medical reason. So I was like, "That's perfect timing. We
Yeah.
unite forces." You know, like the cost of living there is cheaper
Mm-hmm.
too. I'm like, I'm not gonna be spending a lot of money. The people there are so nice to me. You know, like I was there for a week and I became friends with a lot of people and good friends.
Yeah.
So it was like perfect plan. So I think coming off of that win at Who's Number One and going to Oklahoma, meeting new people, like spending days training right, right next to Lovato, you know, side by side.
Yeah.
It was something really like that just kept the drive, and then the opportunity started arising. You know, like
Mm.
I don't like to say that a lot, but it was probably one of my best years as far
Yeah.
as competing,
Yeah.
because there wasn't much IBJJF going on, but there was just so many opportunities for you to make money with super fights, with private tournaments, which usually don't have it because the athletes usually are so busy competing the
Yeah.
tournaments on the Grand Slam. So it was a great year, you know.
Well, it was cool too because I remember I was trying to compete as much as I could during COVID, and you were like at every event that there was. And it was an interesting time because I think a lot of athletes didn't want to compete because they felt like their training wasn't as good as it could be, or that wasn't what they were used to. But man, for the people that did compete like you throughout that time, it was a big time to make a big jump in your career. Like all of the people that like jiu-jitsu were home watching the events because there was nothing else to do. So it got like the fan base a lot higher. It got the momentum a lot higher. It got you exposure and also like the opportunity to compete against some big names that maybe you wouldn't have matched up with in brackets and things like that, or one-on-one super matches or super fights. Like I think it was a huge time. And then as things start to open up again, then you really got into like the regular Grand Slam black belt tournaments. And so now, then you moved to Texas. And if you bring us up to speed now, I want to go into talking a little bit about how you have a lot of roles and responsibilities. Like a lot of athletes, they do maybe a little bit teaching on the side, or they just try to make it as like a competitor, or maybe they're teaching full time to pay the bills because they don't make money as a competitor yet. When you think about like the phases of things you've been through, and now being a school owner, a competitor, you're working on like you have your clothing brand, you're doing other things, other projects. What do you like when you think about all your responsibilities? How do you find balance there, or how do you choose what to prioritize when you think about what success means to you, right? Like happiness and success and financial stability and your big goals. How do you find balance and peace around all of those things?
Yeah, so I think that year of having everything like going great on my end, like competing, making money, like actually start living for jiu-jitsu fully, like being financially stable, like getting my own place, doing my own things, traveling whenever I wanted to somewhere to compete or maybe to teach, like it gave me like I'm living a dream.
Yeah.
But then also at the end of the season, I got hurt really bad. So then I was fine, like financially and all that, but it got me thinking like, oh my God, like what if I can't come back? What's going to be next?
Right.
Am I just going to be trying to come back? If it doesn't work, what am I going to do? Like, I know I like to teach, but what am I going to teach? Like, what's the plan? I don't want to just be like a teacher that will fill in for someone. I will actually be able to have a program, impact people, make sure impact people in a positive way through my teaching and kids and all that. So I think that time that I got hurt, it made me think about what really matters. Like competing and all that. I really love that. That's my life. But I mean, I sound a lot of old people told me that. What's the future? You're not gonna fight forever.
Well, and you don't like hearing that when you're in the middle of it. You're like, shut up.
Yeah,
I know.
I know. Yeah, dude, but I'm winning.
Yeah.
So think about
but
that
then
later.
Thinking about that legacy is really powerful too.
Your priorities and all that. So what are my priorities outside of like compete and win?
Right.
That takes a lot of time, like to be an athlete and all that. But what else can I do? What are the things that I like to do? I like clothing, so maybe I can like start messing with some clothing, make my own stuff.
Yeah.
Like put a little bit, like expressing a little bit of my taste for clothing and like from colors, for my creativity through my clothing. So I started doing a little bit of that. And then I asked Lovato, to start teaching sometimes to cover for him because I like to teach, but it was something spare after COVID. Like before COVID, as a brown belt, I had a really good time teaching. I was actually, I would say, like more of an intern. I would be like on the mats, like trying to see where people are teaching. Sometimes if a black belt was coming, I would be hoping that they would like invite me to be teaching because I would have so much fun. But outside of that, I didn't have like, it was just like a raw skill. So I wasn't working as much. So
right. It wasn't getting refined all the time. Right. Yeah.
So I got some time in Brazil, did a couple seminars, spent time with my family. And once I got back to Texas, I wanted to be part of the Six Blades and also help it I love the ideology so much, and I'm so grateful for them because that I wanted somehow expand it, help it expand it. And that's when my school idea came up. We saw that there was an area in Austin that we thought would be a good area for us to, work on our project, like have our project being there. And things just started naturally. I think I got better eventually from my injury, but it took me a while to go 100%. So even though I was training, I was competing at a high level still, I still had some thought on that. I was like, it can't be in 5 years, it can't be in 10 years, it gotta be now, like I think a lot of people, they don't like responsibilities, but you have to take the big responsibilities in order to make things happen. If you never really fully engage on the responsibilities, you can't complain if things doesn't happen. Sometimes things are going to happen your way, but being a professional athlete and having to perform, is a big responsibility. But I just felt like I can do more than that. Like maybe I can be in charge of a program, be in charge of a school, because I like that. So I was able to have someone that it was a really good person to me. He's a really good person, important person in my life. They bought into the idea and things happen, like now still a full-time athlete. I own my school. I run the kids program, and I think it's really awesome because it just like motivates me more now that I have the community around me.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about when I hear from athletes who do different projects like this, and this definitely was my experience too, but I've heard this so many times now, that when you have so many different avenues going on where you're able to express yourself, and you get financial security too, but also just get like your value, like the way that you value yourself in the world, and the way that you're able to get your self-esteem by doing esteemable acts, right? Which a lot of times is like you're saying, teaching or doing these things you feel proud of, right? It's like you can have a lot more fun competing because you're not like, man, if I lose this, my life's over. When you only have that one thing, it's really hard not to place your worth in that category. But if you have all these other things too, then this one thing doesn't define you.
Yeah. And sometimes you actually puts out, how can I say that? The more like you put on a scale and you look back at competing and you're like, I don't think I need that. Like I can go by without it.
Yeah.
So it really puts on a scale how much you really want it.
Yeah.
If you're still competing whenever you have all that and have the drive, is because you really want it. You know, you gotta really push yourself. So I think that's also something people thought maybe think that goes the other way. Like you start teaching a lot and then you don't want to compete. But if that happens, it's because you never really want it.
That's a good thing, right? It's teaching you that that's maybe not your priority. That's a good
exactly.
thing.
You know, like maybe it wasn't made for you. You know, it was one, I would say, one way. It helped you find your passion, but it wasn't really deep your passion. And what I found for me is that it just makes me more, you know, like excited to compete. It gives me the extra drive, you know, because now I have the people behind me, I have a community. They see me day by day. They see me working, and it's a good exchange, and you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, man. What would you say to the athletes or the coaches or the athletes that are like, if you want to be the best, like you just have to focus on one thing. Like you don't have time for more than one. Like what comes to mind? Like, did anyone ever tell you that? Did you feel like that? Did you worry about it?
I did have that mentality for a while, you know, like whenever I was in college, you know, like I was in college, but my main focus was competing and all that. I only go back to college nowadays because that's not what I really want to, you know, but I believe that if you have good time management and if you do things by the clock, you can do it. You can do a lot of things, you know. Even sometimes if you feel like you can't, just start like tempering down a little bit. Maybe you're doing too much, you know. But I think anything's possible, you know. Like, and the more that you get to know, like people that are really successful in jiu-jitsu or any other sports, they do a ton of like job behind it, like top athletes, you know, like from different like sports. They're playing, but then they're like doing meetings. They're working on their brand. So there's so much behind it, you know. So having the discipline with your time and all that, I think that's really important, you know. So sometimes people hear something and they understand on their way, so they think that's the way they should do it. And you know, like I like to really think on the best way and like find the experience from the people who were like on my position and see what they think, you know. Like Shanji, he always thought he competed at a high level. He always thought Saulo too. So I thought it was like, it's not a big deal, you know. Like you still can be like responsible in other areas of your life and still compete. And that's something that I always preach to the younger athletes that I have, you know, like contact with, is like you can't just focus on that and let your normal life go like as a wreck, you know. Like I know a lot of people that you're so put so much emphasis on training and competing and all that the other areas of their life they're not developing, you know. Like they don't have like communication skills, they don't have a driver's license, they don't have they don't have like,
they're not learning about finances or taxes or anything.
Exactly. You just so much tunnel vision, and what happens is just so overwhelming because you are always thinking, oh, what if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go back to my country and go find a job? Or no, man, there's so many you can do, but you also got to be working. You can just push and start to work that later on your life. You got to be side by side, you know, have the discipline to work at different things at the same time and be effective with it, you know. So
yeah, I think it's really romanticized to hyper focus on one thing, and not even just jiu-jitsu, like other sports, or say someone has like their job, their dream job. It's easy to romanticize, like, well, if you want to be the best, like you just have to, but it's true. I think it's actually, you kind of hurt yourself in the long run because you're putting all that pressure on it, and then if it doesn't work out, like you don't have anything left, you know. Or maybe it does work out, but then you feel like kind of empty in these other areas too.
Yeah, it wasn't as fulfilling probably, right? Like you worked out and you made it, but what's next?
Yeah, because we all know, like I think when you're younger in your career, you look and you're like, man, if I just win the world at black belt, like then I'll be happy. Like I'll be happy then, right? But then as you start to mature and you do win some of these titles, you're like, well, that was a really great moment. It was so fun. It was amazing. But then like the next day, like I was back at the school and I'm training again, and my life is the same. Like, I didn't get a call for $1 million. Like, you know, your life's the same. So you better build a life that you actually like living.
Exactly. 100%, you know, you next day you go back to your normal life and things go on, you know, and then you get ready for the next one. You will start working on a new project, you know, and that's
make sure you're like tending to your relationships and building those strong, because those are gonna like be there regardless of the accomplishments too. So then you have the bad day where you lose and you look around, you better have put a lot of energy into your community too, right? So they can give back when you're maybe not having like your high, when you're in your low, then they're there to support in that moment too.
Yeah, that's something interesting too, because you can just like more like jiu-jitsu wise, you cannot just thinking about winning and not building a community around you that supports you, because you know, you can just win and hope that one day you're gonna get a house and you're gonna get invited to go teach somewhere. Like that there are so many champions there. What are you like providing them? You know, like what are you what are you giving back to
where's
the
your
community?
value? Like what value are you
know?
bringing?
Like, so work on those areas, you know. But I think that also comes down to like be humble enough to ask questions and like know like what could I be doing better. I ask a lot of questions, you know, like at least I think I do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always trying to learn something from someone that, you know, will help me, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. So just out of curiosity, just out of like personal experience, you've been through that. What do you think about this? And, you know, like something like that. And that also applies to my jiu-jitsu a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny because during my jiu-jitsu competition, I was able to hit a lot of like submissions and moves that I learned from random people. You know, of course, the base of my jiu-jitsu is like from my teachers and all that. But there was a lot of like different random movements that I was able to apply just out of curiosity, you know.
Yeah.
Like, let me see. That Grand Prix ankle lock.
Yeah.
I was working on it a little bit. I wanted to figure out how to do it. But then I traveled to Orlando to compete at the PNs. And then I go to Bruno Malfacini school to train at the open mat. And then Isaac Durdelin is there. I was like, oh, this dude have a sick foot lock. Maybe I can ask him about it. I asked him about it. 3 months later, I hit that same foot lock and I make 20 G's on that. So
that's amazing. That was against Ali, right? The finals was
exactly. Yeah. So it's just like one more like example, you know, like you get the information, you save it, and play it on, you know, be humble enough to ask, you know.
I love that, man. It's so good, like being curious and being like having a taste for learning and being a student all the time, and not just in jiu-jitsu too. Like I think it's like what you've done really well that I've seen is you surround yourself with people that have a lot of knowledge in different areas, so you build yourself a community that not just can support you because they love you, but because they have knowledge and experience and information. And then of course, making sure that you're giving to them what you can in exchange, like anything you can provide value in. And I think you've done a really good job with that, which is why like looking at you as a young competitor, although you're a black belt now, but still very young, like young competitor, like just kind of getting, into the height of your career. You just opened a school and you have these multiple businesses going. Like it's pretty rare. It's not a thing that happens a lot.
Yeah, you know, like happy about it, but not satisfied. Right? Like, what is next? What is the next project that I can maybe start working on? I'm not gonna fully commit because I have a lot on my plate right now. But once things is off on this side, what's next? What can I start doing here? You know, because life is short, and I think you gotta like always, you know, try to explore your full potential. Like,
go for it.
How far can I go? Let's see. You know, like. I think
well, I'm excited. We're going to get into future a little bit later, but for now, when you look at your life, and are you going to have kids? Are you planning on having kids one day?
I hope so, right?
Yeah. Like, okay. Well,
I believe that's why we're here. I mean, it's one of the missions, so I believe so. Yeah.
Part of the mission. I like it. So
I don't think about it too much, but yeah, I think that'll be cool.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of time, so you're good. But when you think about like someday in the future, telling your kids about your life, right? Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff to come. But when you look at your life now, what are some highlights or one major highlight you would want to share, like a story or something that you're really proud of?
Yeah. So I think like whenever you're an athlete, I actually hear that a lot from people that are high accomplished. Like sometimes, you know, even they attach to the moments that you win, you know, like I have such like, I have good wins. I'm not like taking it for granted, but I think like just traveling the world and like doing jiu-jitsu, going to places, I was always curious, you know, so I used to love geography books,
Mm.
because you could like go on them and there would be pictures of different cities. I
Yeah.
remember seeing pictures of Moscow, seeing pictures of Asia, and I was like, oh dude, imagine how is it going there. And maybe 7 years later I was there.
Wow.
So I think the biggest thing for me that sharing the future, it's like how do I got my passion to take me like so far, like
Mm.
not like as far as achievement, just like so far from where I came from, like such an to like
Yeah.
different places, to meet different people. So I think just like traveling around the world was something really
Mm.
good. I plan on do that again maybe, but being such a young age, you know, like probably 19, 20, have such a big opportunities. A lot of like the trips that I made, I won, but also I lost. But still, just the experience of being there, you know,
Yeah.
like being surrounded by friends, making friends from different countries, and like
Yeah.
it's just like a such a cool network. I think that's the main thing, you know. Like I
Mm.
was able to go to this country. I know this guy right there. I stayed at this hotel. It was really not the best hotel, but I had the best time. I
Yeah.
had to walk everywhere. I got
Yeah.
lost. So I think, you know, like there's so many good stories you find
Yeah.
yourself on, you know.
Man, it's amazing when you say that too, because I think a lot of young athletes who are listening, when they are at blue, purple, sometimes black belt too, but especially in those younger ages when you're trying to imagine what your career is going to look like, and you maybe don't have a lot going on outside of just jiu-jitsu. When you go on a trip and you lose and you hear the older people saying like, "Oh, it's about the journey, like it's not the results." It's like, "Shut up, man. Like you don't like." I remember I used to think like, "Well, you don't care as much as I do. Like I care more." And it's funny looking back because I'm like, man, like it really is the journey, because I am like you. I remember some of the big wins, but really I remember like, who did I make friends with that I'm still friends with today? Or like what places did I get to go? Like, and I think it all, like even the times you did have losses, it still contributed to your career in one way or the other.
For sure. I think that way too, you know, like no one ever is just gonna win. Someone's gonna lose
Yeah.
at some point. You know, just can be comfortable with it. And also, I don't think you should like diminish yourself with the
Mm,
loss. Just like gotta learn. You know, I think that also is the way that I used to train anywhere I go a lot. Like
yeah.
maybe someone's get on my side or gets my back.
Hmm.
Oh, how did that happen? What can I do better? I'm not freaking out about it. I'm trying to look for a solution, right?
Yeah. The curiosity. It's the
Yeah,
same
be
way you
patient and look
operate.
for a
Yeah.
solution. Like be
Yeah.
patient. It happens to everyone. Let's look for a solution. Let's make a plan, and then let's come back and see how it goes. You know, like keep pushing. And if
Mm,
it happens again, I won't back down.
yeah.
I'll go back again at it till I make it happen. If I make it happen, maybe it can happen twice, or maybe, you know, like that's how I think.
Yeah, man. Well, that's perfect, because the next question is, what do you, so going into that and being curious and having struggles on the mat, what do you find is one of the times in your life you look back that it felt really dark, or it was dark, or it was really difficult, but it brought a lot of light, like something that you would look back and not change, but it's like, man, I was going through it and this is what I learned through it.
I think being like 18, 19, and being so far from parents.
Mm.
On my move to the US, I had to spend some time here, like for visa stuff, so I couldn't go back. Maybe like a year and a couple months without going
Oh,
back,
yeah.
and just being by myself. Of course, I had friends and all that.
Yeah.
They were really good friends. They did a lot for me, but you know, like you're so used to your family. So I was
Yeah.
like, man, is this really worth it? I know I've been winning tournaments, but
Yeah.
what if I go back and just go back to my regular life? Am I ever gonna see, you know, my parents often again? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like you used to wake up, see your parent, and you take that for granted. But once you're like thousands of miles away from them and you get to see them once a year, you kind of like start thinking more about that, you know?
Appreciate it
You
more.
start
Yeah.
appreciating it and start thinking twice, like, how can I make this work where I still can be that back there? So, you know, like start doubting yourself, you know, down if that was the right choice, you know, what could I
Yeah.
have done that maybe I would be there still and be successful and have another plan. So,
Mm.
you know, like I had the hardships. I lived in the school for a little bit.
Yeah.
Had the grind. I think that was kind of like one of the hardest time, but probably recently the hardest time was whenever I was injured,
Mm.
because my jiu-jitsu, the way I do jiu-jitsu, the way I do grappling is very mobile. Like
It's like gymnastics.
I like to move a lot, you know. And whenever I hurt my back, I literally could do a sit up.
Yeah.
Couldn't do a sit up.
Yeah.
Couldn't, you know, touch my own toes for a while, months.
Mm.
Couldn't like squat, do deadlifts, or any of that.
Because you do a
So
lot of inversions and stuff in your game too, and I think it's important, if you guys don't already know, that like when you're inverting with people in the ultra heavy division,
Yeah.
like this is like got things that you see the lightweights doing, but you really brought so much explosive like movement and really fun like acrobatic jiu-jitsu to these divisions. But when you're carrying big bodies like that, when you're doing it, that's a lot of pressure on your body.
Yeah, and I was never really big on like the strength part of it, you know. Like, of course, I had some size because of genetics and all that, but even in Brazil, I never really had like the habit of like lifting weights properly to protect myself to that game. Nowadays, I have learning, and I'm still like I think getting better at how to protect my body and still be able to do the things I do. So not being able to do anything athletic at all for like a couple months, it was really challenging. You know, it put me in a really dark place that I didn't know what I could do, if I was gonna be able to come back. Everything, you know, sometimes that's not even the best time for you to go seek for a doctor's opinion, because they are not very hopeful sometimes. I'm not saying bad stuff about them, but it's just like sometimes you're not gonna have the best the best opinion. They're not gonna be as hopeful. They're gonna be like, man, you're lucky you're still walking, like something like that. And I was like, hearing that
makes
whenever I'm here like to do jiu-jitsu and like be an athlete and moving, being athletic and all that, doing cartwheels, doing inversions, I was like, what am I gonna do now? So as I start getting back to jiu-jitsu, you know, getting back to being fully mobile, I start like almost feeling like myself again. I had to adapt my game. I couldn't go back. I couldn't just go straight from not being able to move to being bolo. There was like a phase there that I like to make a joke. I had to roll like a master's.
You got
I had
your
my master's phase. So whenever I was doing that, in training, I had to do a lot of stuff that I usually wouldn't. Being really uncomfortable positions. Not only the position would be uncomfortable, but my body would be hurting sometimes. My back would be hurting. So the rehab, it was like really, you know, like painful and like. But it's funny though, because it gave me almost like an extra skill. I always had the skill of like, you know, being mobile, like, you know, doing flashing things, being fast. But then, like once I couldn't move as much, I had to be able to remain calm and work on bad positions. That's like what I did a lot. And on my recent World Championship, that's literally the whole match. You know, I was in a really bad position for probably 8 minutes. I held on to it.
You were down by how many points before you?
It was 2, but it was probably like 5 advantages. It was like a lot of advantage.
Oh, because was he about to pass? Is that what?
Yeah. His ankle like caught there. But that represented like a whole probably year or more of like training. Even though at that match I was like probably like almost fully recovered. I could do a lot of stuff. Like there is no like blame on like my condition to how like he neutralized my game for the whole match. But having that leg there on my ankle was like the last hope that I had, and all I needed was one chance, and that's what he gave me, and I took it.
Yeah, man, and if you guys haven't seen that, you should go back and watch that match, the Victor Hugo and Gutenberg Pereira finals of the Worlds last year or this year. Oh my gosh.
Was this year, huh? Yeah, it feels like this year. Yeah.
It was this year. Wow.
Yeah, it passed by fast.
Yeah, it's time flies. Yeah, you guys should watch that match because Victor was holding on to the ankle at the very end and then came on top. And like, how many points did you rack up in the last like 20 seconds?
Yeah, it was like 9 points. 9
Crazy.
Points in probably 15 seconds or something.
Yeah, it was like the most dramatic world final finish for sure. Like it was crazy. So, but you're saying that through that entire back injury, what you were forced to work on and look at and stay in these own, and I think there needs to be a lot of attention there on the fact that when you're used to training with certain people and having a certain way of rolling with them and beating them, and you have like a status like with the people you train with, man, if you have to completely change everything, like you have to really, really be willing to set your ego to the side because you can, of course, like you can talk about, okay, like we're all teammates, we're humble, we're this, but it's still a combat sport. Like you still want to like show up and be your best. So when you have to put that to the side, and it takes a lot of discipline to be able to really, really give yourself to that. And obviously it paid off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you actually brought a good point, you know, like because I had to become used to like to be smashed by people that I used to dominate a little bit, you know, like and like bad.
Yeah.
And I actually thank them that I didn't take it easy on me, because if I wasn't competing or any of that, it would make sense for them like to like go easy on me. But I wanted to get back in competition the fastest that I could, even if I wasn't 100%, because of the momentum that I had in 2020.
Yeah.
So that 2021 season, you can see my game is kind of odd a little bit. Like I wasn't doing stuff that I usually would do, but it was just something that added up to the journey, you know. And
Yeah.
now it helped me like achieve this title, and it was a good experience, you know, like through pain and all that. But
Yeah.
I got the best from it, I think.
Yeah, and when you have an experience like that, you have, I mean, there's no replacing the hardship, because now in the future, whether it's an injury or whatever happens, like you're gonna go, we always go through more struggles. So when the struggles come, you're able to have a lot of trust and faith in yourself, because you have the proof of like what you've done. Like you have your past, and you're like, man, I did that, and like it was really hard, but I know it led to me being better. So if I just keep faith in that, I don't have to have the whole plan yet and know what it's gonna look like, but you can trust yourself, because you know you're willing to go like to that dark place to make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the same way.
Perfect. So, okay. So next question, when you think about the behind the scenes portion of a combat athlete's life, I mean, there's so much. I was gonna, like, so many people talk about weight cutting. Obviously you don't go weight, so that's good. But when you think about like travel, being away from family, mental health, balancing relationships, business, like what's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you think like people see the Instagram feed and they're like, oh man, like Victor's so cool, he's winning this, his shirts are awesome, like blah blah blah. Like what do you think goes on behind the scenes, or maybe that people a misconception like about a combat athlete?
If I could be a little bit more specific towards jiu-jitsu athlete, I would say is like how are you gonna make yourself financially stable, you know, because the sport is so new. Of course, like nowadays we have way more opportunities than my sensei had, and but still it's so uncertain, you know. I think like if you go to UFC, you get a contract. Now you're working for a company.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, there's not much of that. Now probably we're starting to have that, but you know, till you get to that point, what are you gonna do? Like, there's gonna be so much uncertainty, you know. Like,
you're your own business.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to like do, you know, like juggle so many things together to make that happen. Maybe you're gonna have to teach a little bit. I know people that deliver. I know people that do some
Uber and stuff.
Uber, and you know, like just like figure out that part and still show up to train. You know, it's a combat sport, so some days you're gonna get beat up. Get beat up, you know, maybe go to a tournament that you paid for yourself to go, get beat up, Monday get back to work and start doing the same things that they are not gonna, you know, the training, the sacrifices and all that, they're not like a guarantee that you're gonna perform. They're just like a requirement. So I think that's the main thing, you know.
Yeah, I love that answer, because I have like, man, you hear it all the time, the guys and the girls that are like, oh, I wish I could be, you know, 25 again and just be like training all the time, and that's my only responsibility. And it's like, man, that's like maybe 1%, like the people that have really rich families and the kids, but that's very rare. Like most of the guys and the girls that are in their 20s or like late teens, they're figuring it out. Like there's a little bit more sponsorship now, like you're saying, a little bit more support. But I would say the vast majority still are like, they're just scraping together anything they can. And there isn't really stability. So it can be a good thing, because it was like you were saying before, it proves that you really want it, because it's like, okay, I really had the desire for this. But it's also, it's not secure.
Yeah, and it creates a lot of judgments by the people that are like the closest to you, not even like your jiu-jitsu partners, but your family sometimes, if they don't know, like if they don't
that's something I'm not even familiar with, so maybe you have more insight on
exactly that. You know, like sometimes they don't understand what's happening. They're like, you're doing that jiu-jitsu thing. No, it didn't happen with me, but you know, like I know some people that happen to, like, you're doing the jiu-jitsu thing and are you making money? Like what's the deal there? Like you're winning all those tournaments, but where is all the money? Because in sports of it all, maybe whenever you're an NBA player, you get a contract, you already made $1 million, so you're good. So you now just gonna like work for that. Jiu-jitsu, you're gonna work so much till you like start like finding that money and all that. Of course, nowadays, I believe you, me, this new generation, where we're working hard to make it entertainment and all the other areas to, you know, be able to make that like that process faster, you know. And nowadays you have purple belts that are like be able to leave from jiu-jitsu already. So, but still, like for the vast majority, there's still a long journey to go, you know. And you're gonna face a lot of judgments. You're gonna face a lot of like moments that you're gonna doubt yourself if this is really it, or if you should take another way, another route. Sometimes you have to, you know. But yeah, it's just like challenging, I believe.
And what would be your advice like in those categories? Because you described having some of your own doubts and stuff in your particular like in your experience. So when you think about like an athlete talking to you about these things, if they're like, man, like my family is saying this, or my girlfriend's mad I can't take her out on this date, or like whatever it is, you know, what would be your advice to people, whether it's, I mean, obviously it's very jiu-jitsu specific, but even other people in different categories that are like chasing this dream and they're having to have these sacrifices. What is your philosophy on that? Because you're now on this side of things where you feel like you do have like a good grip on your life, you're balanced, you have stability, you're feeling comfortable, you have had so much success. So what would you say to like younger athletes that are going through that?
I would say, see what have you done so far. And I'm not perfect, you know, far from being perfect, but you gotta be honest with yourself. Like, are you really engaged to it? Are you so and so? You like the idea of being an athlete and win tournaments, but when it comes down to like be one of the best in the world and like really like put on sacrifices and put in hours, are you really doing that? If you're doing it, if you're doing everything that you can and it's still not happening, maybe it might be the time for you to like see, like, get opinions from experienced people on what can you get better. Are you being humble enough to like be listening that you're not good at this and can get better at that, you know, or trying to figure out things on your own? Like, are you open to hear from different people? So I think that's what happened. And if sometimes your mind is kind of splitted, you like this lifestyle, but you might want to take another way, another route. I think if you're young, you should go it. I mean, if you're not, like nowadays you have such like a lot of like stories, or even like back then that people start like competing as a black belt later. They probably did better somehow because they tried to do something else, it didn't work, and then they know, no, this is me, this is my path, I'm gonna go back to it, I'm gonna make it happen. So I believe just like being honest with yourself and being humble. Whenever I say being humble, don't like diminish yourself, like, oh, I'm not this, I'm not good, but just like be humble enough to look for, you know, answers.
I would say. Be open to criticism. And I like the consistent theme of asking questions that people have more experience in different areas. Like, man, I think it's so important to have people that know more, that you're willing to ask questions, but also that you trust that they know you well enough and that they will tell you the truth. Like, it's not to say someone that's going to put you down and try to criticize you, but if someone is your friend or someone is a mentor, someone that you trust their opinion, they should be able to be like, hey man, like, I love you, but look, like, you're really messing up in this area, and here's what I think we should try to do. Like, being open to that criticism will change your life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's gonna hurt. But guess what? Losing is gonna hurt. Not being able to achieve your goals is gonna hurt. Having that big doubt, if you ever like, am I gonna get there? Am I actually like giving everything I have now to make that happen? Also hurts, because you go, at the end of the day, you go to bed and go to sleep, but you know, like, oh, I'm messing up with this. Like, you can't run from yourself. At some point, you're gonna be like, face yourself, you know, look yourself in the mirror, and you know, like, the truth and the lie. So I think that's a little bit of it. Yeah,
being honest with yourself, and then having help from people to help you be honest with what's going on too, because we're so subjective with our own opinions on ourselves. Like, it's a little bit, it can be tricky, and it can be easy to fool yourself, you know, especially I think now I sound old. I was gonna say these days, like with social media and everything, like obviously I'm really big on trying to build social media because I think it's an important part of branding yourself. But what I think happens now sometimes is, man, the kids, they start so young with paying really close attention to having like big online profiles and seeing themselves as famous and comparing themselves to other athletes. And they get obsessed with the idea of being an athlete, or like the romanticism of like, wow, I could be famous and have this many followers and I get to meet this person. But the reality of the day-to-day, like, is not so romantic all the time. Of course you want to romanticize your life, have a beautiful life, a life that you love, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on like in the dark that nobody sees that makes all of that light happen, you know?
Yeah, 100%. You know, a lot happens in the dark room. You gotta make stuff happen in the dark room whenever no one is watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only so much you can show. So face yourself and go to the dark room, make the things happen. I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of that whenever you're like chasing a dream or anything like that.
Yeah. And if you don't like that part so much, then you're probably not going to get the other part. I think that's important
for sure.
to mention.
Yeah, you can just like look at a thing and thinking about like the fruits,
the shiny,
the shiny. That's gonna be a dark. There's gonna be a dark path there. Some people it's darker, some people it's dark, but they can see the light through it. But you'll have it, you know, like
well, and it's not even guaranteed. I think that's the thing that's important about accepting and kind of surrendering to the path being difficult, because the shiny part is not guaranteed ever. Like people like to pretend like, oh, you can, if you just keep trying over and over and over, you always get it. Man, there's a lot of people that don't like and it's not to be depressing.
Try to do that to a rock.
Yeah.
Start to go through a rock like that.
Right. Exactly. And it's not to be depressing, like to be like, oh, like, well, then what's the point? Because someone's going to win. Because the flip side of that is, well, man, like someone's going to do it. So why not me? Right. There's that side of it too. Why couldn't it be me? But it's just the reality of, you know, there's going to be winners and losers. And getting that thing is probably not going to give you the fulfillment that you think if you're still in that place where you think that is going to. And that group applies to so many different categories, but especially jiu-jitsu and competitive tournaments and stuff. So when you're thinking about that shiny thing, like you got to make sure, or not you can do whatever you want, but I think it's much more beneficial to pick a life that you like all the parts of it pretty, like you're willing to do all the parts of it. Like you're not going to be miserable being in the dark room, like you said. Like you got to learn to love it, because if you're not going to love it, then there's a like one thing that I used to think about in wrestling, and it's one of the reasons I left, is I was like, man, if I do another 4 years of this for the Olympics and I don't get the medal, if I don't go to the Olympics, maybe I don't even make the team, will it be worth it? And I looked back and I'm like, or I looked forward really, and I was like, no. Like if I in my mind, I was like, it's worth it because I'm going to win the Olympics. And I was so young too. And then I was like, but if I don't win the Olympics, it's not worth it. So that means that 4 years of my life is probably not how I want to spend it.
Yeah. And you can take that back, right?
Yeah.
4 years is a lot of times. It's a lot of time, and you can take that back. Yeah. And I think what you said too is interesting, because if you thought it would be worth it, you'd probably be down, like if it didn't happen, because then it'll be more 4 years or something. But I think there you're like, when you were fully honest to yourself.
Yeah.
Not worth it, right? Like,
yeah,
let's do something else or something like that. Let's change the plan. That's interesting. It takes a lot of maturity, I think, because sometimes you're like, you kind of going on your own lie. You're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
All right, I won this. Yeah, no, I won this. It happened that way though, but I won this.
Yeah.
And so people, they spend years on that, I think, you know.
Yeah. And really it comes from being, like you said, being open to a lot of feedback and asking a lot of questions from people who knew more than I do, or have more experience. Like, hey, can you help me think about this or think through it? Because it's so funny. Like every year, every age you get to, you look back and you're like, oh man, when I was 18, I didn't know anything. But then you're sitting here and you're like 25 and you're like, well, I think I know something. But then imagine when you're 30, you're going to look back, man, when I was 25. Yeah. So it's important we keep asking questions to older people.
I think that way is interesting, because I think that way about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like whenever I won maybe like 2016, I thought I knew a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because I won double gold, and man, I think I know I'm pretty good at this thing. And to this day, I feel like I know jiu-jitsu now, but I don't think I know a lot of jiu-jitsu. It's going to take a lot to master it, and I look forward to how much I'm going to learn, not only about jiu-jitsu, but about life, and how much I can share about it, you know. How much like people, like how many lives I can impact with a little bit of experience that I have on these things, how much more I can learn, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple more questions. When you think about balancing your life with all these roles, okay, so I know that you think it's really important to have all these things going on, and why, but on a day-to-day basis, like you mentioned time management, right? How do you find your like happiness in, I think the word balance is overused, but really just in your prioritization, like in the way that you live your life, making sure happiness is a priority and also achieving your goals is a priority. What are some tangible things that you find are important to focus on to stay in both of those categories?
I think you mean like on a day by day, like habits or something like that. I think being embracing the project is something like that I really like, you know, like for being an athlete, it's always the project. What's the next competition? If I'm not competing, maybe someone from my team is. How can I, be part of it, and how can I make that, like, how can I be the most helpful to you? Like, what ideas can we bring in? And that happens through, like, on my school now. How can I make those kids really enjoy jiu-jitsu? How can I help that kid overcome overcome a bully, and you know be confident, maybe with, like, the older students. How can I make this guy, like, have the best experience with jiu-jitsu? He's older, he can't go like crazy, so
Yeah.
but he also is fully committed. So how can I make that guy, like, have the best experience that he could have, and be here for a long time? So, and like, always looking for projects, small projects, big projects. And I think, like, winning every day, like small wins. Like, today, maybe this day I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna teach a great class, I'm gonna try to, like, I always say that, like, sorry, I'm keep repeating, but
No, it's good.
leave a positive impact on the person, not for that day. Maybe
Yeah.
they did jiu-jitsu, they had the best time. That was a
Mm.
little win. Now I go back home, I'm gonna get ready to train. I'm gonna learn one move, and I'm gonna keep that move. Maybe I'll use that move in 4 months in a competition.
Right.
That was a win.
Mm.
And then, like, like, a collection of small wins, and not be satisfied with it. What's gonna be my win tomorrow? Like, let's win this day again. So I think if you have this mindset, you're winning every day. At the end, there's no, like, the probability that you're gonna win whenever it's actually the time to win
Yeah.
is way higher. Like, you're
Yeah.
not fooling yourself. Maybe tomorrow I will work on that, or maybe so. Be
Right.
involved in projects daily. It could be big projects, it could be smaller
Yeah.
projects, but always be involved with something that drives you to do your best and have that small win. I think that's how I like to take my day. And I like to do different stuff. Like, I'm a regular person. I like to watch movies. I like to travel.
Yeah.
I like all that. But I think on my daily daily thing, be involved in projects with people that I love,
Yeah.
like with my friends and all that. And jiu-jitsu really gives me the opportunity. I think that's the main thing.
I love the word that you keep using, the word project, because I think when people think about project, they think it's like some new business, right? But it's like projects, you're just saying, like, set a small attainable goal and then go do it. And like, that's checked off the list. Like, that sense of accomplishment too is so good for your self-esteem, because it builds the momentum to do the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You
because
get
it
the
feels
momentum,
good.
and you start feel like invincible. Like,
Yeah.
you get those days, and like, you're getting such good momentum, and you're like, man, it's so good. Like, I'm doing so good. What can I do more now? Maybe I can start doing more than this, and then, like, start develop new skills and, like, create new habits. And I think that's what life is about. That's how life doesn't get boring. That's how
Yeah.
you always, like, learning something new, trying something new, and, like,
Yeah.
it's really, I think that's, like, the way that I think I found my flow. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, I love it. It builds the momentum because it feels good to do the good thing, and then you're more likely to do the next good thing. And then at the same time, if something does get missed, or something is thrown off track, or you don't land the move the way you wanted it to, it's like, it's also not the end of the world, because you have a new small thing coming. Then you can get that, and you can kind of get back in your groove, get back in your momentum. So it's a good way to stay, like, balance. And when you talked about time management earlier, it's kind of the same thing. You're really just looking at your priorities throughout the day, and it's like, what little things am I going to get done one after the other? Then, man, you get to the end of the day, you're like, man, I did a lot today.
It was
Like,
a good day,
yeah, it was a good day.
And I think once you think that way, your days, they go by way faster. And once you see the year is over, and most likely I had a good year, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. You do stuff that you're proud of a little bit at a time every day. You get to the end of the year, and it's been a good year.
It contributes to a big win.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Perfect. Okay, so 2 more questions. Second to last one is, what excites you about the next 15 years? You're 25, right? Yeah. So from 25 to 40, or 40 and beyond, what excites you? I know new stuff will happen just because you're so curious. So there'll be things you don't know about. But when you think about right now, the trajectory of things, what makes you feel excited?
I think just, like, how many new people I'm going to meet, and how are we going to, like, relate, how are we going to help each other, and, like, how far my legacy will go through jiu-jitsu, through martial arts, through different stuff, through being an athlete, to maybe, I don't know what's going to happen. 1 year ago, I don't think I knew as many people as I know now, but I don't mean, like, about numbers. I mean, like, of meaningful people in my life. Yeah, quality. So I don't know what's gonna happen, right? Like
Yeah.
every year goes by, you learn. At least me, I'm learning new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm meeting new people, so it's really exciting. What's gonna be the new project in 15 years? You know,
Mm.
like trying to make the best out of this time. You know,
Yeah.
trying to try different things, new things, but it's still like excel at the things that I'm doing now. So I think,
Mm.
yeah, the future is uncertain, but I always hope for a good future because of the work that I've been putting in now. So I don't know
Mm.
what's gonna happen. I'm for sure I'm gonna be retired, but yeah, I'll be still on the competition scenario, like helping kids, developing their
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, sharing a little bit on my career. I don't know. It's just, so
Mm.
I'm really interested to see what's going to be jiu-jitsu in 15 years, because on the last 10 years, I started jiu-jitsu 10 years ago, there was
Yeah.
like huge changes, I believe, you know, like
Yeah.
the information, the reach, it's so bigger now, you know. I believe like
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky guys that was able to travel to the US as a purple belt and
Mm-hmm.
live here. So nowadays, you as a pro belt, you as a blue belt, you have opportunity to travel to another country to
Yeah.
compete through jiu-jitsu. I know for another for other sports that's probably can be a little bit more normal, but
Hmm.
I don't know what I mean, how high, like what are you gonna reach
Yeah.
in
What's
15 years? I
coming?
just want to be part of it, you know. I just want to be part of it
Mm.
and be a positive part of it too, you know, because
Yeah.
the future is there. There's a lot of kids. I
Yeah.
think nowadays there's a lot of parents, there's a lot of people that are joining jiu-jitsu and are trying to leave jiu-jitsu.
And
So,
they're
you know,
watching.
yeah, they're watching, exactly. So
Yeah.
like, just leave a positive, you know, impact, as I always say.
Yeah, I love. Okay, actually, that I'm gonna ask a bonus question now.
Okay.
So that reminds me, it's something actually you've talked about before. I remember talking about like online personas, the and also like the big stigma around, well, I don't know if stigma is the right word, but the big, really the known use of steroids and shits, right?
Mhm.
It's so huge. Like I could be wrong, but I would say like 90% of high level, like the top people in the world, like maybe not as high for women, but some kind of percentage are have used steroids at some point, and a lot of the organizations don't test. And when I get asked this question a lot as a teacher too, like, man, and get these like teenage kids and these 20-year-old kids, the parents, like, they have the questions like, is this something I need to have my kid do? I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. And I'm like, no, here, let me show you all these guys that don't. Like, I've talked about you before because I know that you've always been a clean athlete, and we have had like weird experiences at tournaments where people like are running from USADA. They don't show up for the drug testing. Like, you just had the crazy Nogi Worlds experience. There's like people only on third place and there's no finalists. Like, that was a lot of speculation, but it was a big dramatic thing that happened. When have you ever had anyone ask you about that, or what would your lesson or your maybe just your experience, your voice of hope to the upcoming athletes who are like, man, I want to be the best, but I don't know if I want to be like really big in trash talk. I don't know if I want to be saying like all this crazy stuff to get attention. I don't know if I want to be using steroids. Like, what are your thoughts on the kind of athlete that you can be to succeed?
Yeah, I think as far as like that first part that you talked about, I think my jiu-jitsu also is about longevity. I want to still
Mm,
be able to train jiu-jitsu even after I retire.
yeah.
And I don't think I'm gonna depend on drugs to do that. I think what's gonna make that happen is being healthy.
Mm,
You know, doing the things that you can to be healthy and being technical, like really
yeah.
working on a technique. You know, so I think that's one of the skills. Like that is one of the things of my game. I believe that I'm really technical for my size.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm not. I have not reached my top like technical like level yet. I'm gonna work for it. You know, I have
Yeah.
a lot of time to work for it, but I'm always gonna preach like technique before strength or athleticism. Of course, those are really important things that I actually been putting a lot of emphasis now.
Yeah.
But overall, for me, jiu-jitsu is about longevity. So if you wanna go far, I don't think you can like rely on something that will give you like a temporary boost. If
Mm,
something give you a boost, at some point you're gonna have to catch up because or you're gonna be hooked on it. So I
right.
believe if you're thinking about longevity, you know, that's where your jiu-jitsu, your technique is gonna be very important. And as far as like personality, I think it's just like be yourself, you know.
Mm.
But I myself, I don't think I'm really big on trash talk, but I think some people they like think I'm kind of like, you know, I talk.
Yeah.
I'm not big on trash talk, but if I see something, I'll say something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna be quiet and just see that thing there happening. And I think what happened over the on the podium there is something that is reflecting the change of the sport.
Yeah.
It happens now, but probably won't happen in 5 years.
Yeah.
We have to be consistently putting the work and like showing, not being afraid of like say what we think.
Yeah.
If we think that's right, you know.
Right.
Some people, they'll say things to sell a match. Some things they'll say things just to hurt someone, and then maybe try to get to the head. I think just be real, like be truthful, and say the things that you think they're right to say. You know, like as I said, like uh, about that episode, I said what I saw, and that's it. I can share more than I know.
Yeah.
But what I know is that I got tested twice. I passed it. No fear. I'll get tested again if it happens. And as I said, I'm just leaving the example to the next generation. You know, I'm not gonna be here forever. I'm not trying to be here forever.
Yeah.
I actually love watching jiu-jitsu. I love to watch like the upcoming guys. I hate that I have to face them one day whenever I'm older, but it's part of the game.
Yeah.
My time will go on. There's only so much I'm going to be able to do, you know, like by nature with my genetics. Once that goes on, maybe I'll like, it'll be my son. Maybe I'll just be able to share my jiu-jitsu, but I think that's the way I try to think, you know.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially the thoughts on just being yourself. There's no one way that's right to have your persona or your business or to run your career. But if you're doing it authentically to you, it's the thing is that somebody out there is probably going to connect to you, right? Anyway. So you want to reach those people because those people are the ones that are going to be excited to watch you and really like you can share your experience, your value with them. You can teach them. They're going to come to your seminars. Like they're the ones that really support you in your career too. And you can share experiences. So if you're spending time being an inauthentic version of yourself to sell tickets and this is also mean I like, if you want to trash talk, if it's authentic to you, man, if that feels like that's what you like to do, for sure. Like
usually when people shine, right? Because like they're authentic with the stuff that they do, even the trash talk, and so people relate. They love it.
Yeah, and then do your thing. But if you're trying to try on these shoes that don't fit, like you can only do it for so long, and then people can see. Like it doesn't come off as authentic.
Yeah, people see through the bullshit for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I think that's something that your fans have always like felt in you is that you're not doing like some extra fancy thing that is not like Victor. Like you always show up as yourself, and I think that's why people are so excited to watch you.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it that way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And anytime that comes to the scale, like, oh, am I right or am I wrong? I'm just gonna try to be myself and note that the mission is bigger than I. You know, the mission is bigger than I. I'm here to serve, you know, like as an athlete. Sometimes I said that before. Sometimes you have that thinking that's kind of like selfish, but you're like a big, like, of course, our sport is not that big yet, but you're a big influence inside of the niche. So, you know, what am I going to leave behind? What's going to be my legacy and all that? And having the right people surrounding me and being humble enough to listen to them if they're saying that this doesn't work or something like that, having me thinking twice about something that I said, about something that I'm gonna do about something that I signed up to, you know. So I think it's really important, and it's been a amazing ride, and I just look forward to the future. You know? Be back here, temporary studio.
Yeah,
we'll be back on the fancy
for
studio.
Sure. Yeah,
please don't forget it.
Absolutely,
I was there on the temporary studio.
I was one of the OGs.
Of the fancy studio. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, final question. Your thoughts on having a grip on your life? If it's exactly the same or it's different, doesn't matter. What do you think it means to have a grip on your life? And what would you like if you have everything perfect in line? What does that mean?
I think it's be present. You know, being present. What I mean being present? Know your stuff. Like, am I doing the right thing right now? Am I focused on the right things, on having the right goals in mind? And what's going to be next? What am I going to have to work for? Is that going to be next? Am I going to be doing the same thing for a while? And I think that's it, you know, having the right people surround you, you know, be selective with the people that are around you. And I mean, selective doesn't mean that you have to exclude some people from your life, but what people are you like? Who are you gonna need to achieve that goal, and who is down to go? You know, like to go down that road with you. You know, and be also ready to serve them as you can. Like, and I think that's it. Yeah,
I love
be grateful.
Presence, projects, gratitude, and community.
Yeah,
that's good.
So, yeah.
It's a good list. I like it.
That's a strong grip.
Yeah, that's a strong. I like that. It's perfect. We got it. So, okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And Victor, thank you so much for an amazing podcast. I got so much from it. It was amazing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to link all of your social medias and everything in the show notes. But the main places for people to go, I know your Instagram it's Victor Hugo JJ.
Yeah.
Right. And then what's your website?
Right now, I don't have a website.
Okay.
But if someone is interested in getting my merch, I still have some available on bigmanflow.com. Big, instead of I use the one.
Use the one. And we'll link that. But it's all in your Instagram too, right?
All on my Instagram. Instagram is what I've been working more now. Maybe I was thinking about doing a Twitter because I feel like throughout the days I have random thoughts that sound really interesting, but then I don't want to make a note. I just want to put it out there to see. So I'm thinking about joining Twitter, to just put those random thoughts.
I like it.
But yeah, maybe I'll be joining Twitter soon.
Yeah, so maybe by the time this is out, there'll be a Twitter, so I can link it if there is.
Yeah, let's see.
But your Instagram's there, has everything, and then all of your instructional videos are linked there too, right? If people want to get your instructionals.
Yeah, all my instructional videos are there too, and if I can help you somehow, besides that, don't be afraid of reaching out, right?
Yeah, it goes down in the DMs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure you guys check all that out. And also, really important for the podcast, make sure you guys follow, subscribe. I think they changed the subscribe to follow. Whatever it is, do it. Leave a rating, review. And it's really important in the review, put what you guys like, oh my gosh, my cat just jumped on the table. And here we are. It's the Victor effect.
Yep.
You have cats, right?
Special, yes, I do.
Yep. Special guest. That's Ren.
Or is it a co-host?
I love it. Yeah, since Sula wasn't here to be our co-host, we needed Ren. So make sure you guys leave a review too. That way I know, let us know what you like, what questions you like, different questions that you might want to hear from these guys. Like if there's something you're dying to know about Victor that I didn't ask, let me know. That way I can ask him next time. And really leave your honest feedback. Like all feedback is welcome, because the goal is to make the podcast the most beneficial to you guys, get the most value out of it. I'm getting so much value from these amazing guests. So I want to make sure you guys are feeling the same. So let me know what's going on there, and then share it with anybody you might think that it's that's helpful to, especially like this one in particular. I would say any jiu-jitsu athletes in there. I mean, you could say like at any point, but especially these guys and these girls that are kind of getting started upcoming. Victor has such an incredible story that really built his career from the ground up, and I think did so in a very authentic, true to yourself way, without making a lot of enemies, screwing people over. Man, you hear a lot of people make their careers in ways and they have a lot of skeletons in your closet. And so if people can model their career after someone, and I don't say this lightly, this is one of the guys to do it. So if you guys have anybody who's looking to come up, this would be a great one for them to learn from one of the best in the world, and to learn a little bit about the philosophy of his life and everything. So again, Victor, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Make sure you guys do all those things, and we'll see you back next time on Get a Grip.